Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, in St. Lucia and in the diaspora. Welcome once again to one of the best programs in St. Lucia at present because it is factual, educational, and it is truthful. Before I begin tonight, I want to wish you all happy Easter, and may the Almighty keep you safe in all your undertakings. Believe in Him and make Him the power in your life. Therefore, because it is a holy day and we are celebrating the resurrection, I want tonight to be one of reflection as to who we are and also those who lead us in all walks of life, in politics of the country. I also want to say to Minister Virginia Poyet, nice to see you back. You looked $1 million, and I'm sure it is because of that man in your life. In the media, we have had a lot of discussions over the last few months, predominantly on the issue in terms of the direction the country is going, basically from what it was to what it is under this present government compared to the last. Questions will certainly be asked as to whether it has improved or not under the new unity government of Philip Joseph Pierre, or whether there are those who yearn for the old one that was more or less kicked out of office ingloriously because they basically concentrated on family, friends, and foreigners. In my view, they were certainly not up to the job because of poor leadership on the whole in every ministry. Therefore, my fundamental question is clearly one I think about when I make my decision, and that is whether there are still clouds gathering over our shoulders and the country as a whole. Do foreign governments still see us as a joke, as they used to? To now merely taking time in order to discern the truth from fiction, as they now deal with our present Prime Minister because of what they went through with the last. Are they literally looking before they leap? When one thinks of the last Prime Minister, one has to ask oneself as to whether we would trust the individual with our money, more so institutions around the world. It is alleged that even his father would not trust him with his money. The answer on that front would be a definite no. The trust had dissipated because after a while, the country found it difficult to borrow. We were left on many occasions empty-handed. What was even more apparent was that the country found it very difficult to attract foreign direct investors coming to this country to invest. Instead, they allowed the last Prime Minister to make a fool of himself as he simply gave them our money to invest in the country and called them foreign direct investors, which was simply a classical joke. He believed that he was fooling the mendicants, the jackasses, and the barking dogs, as he called much of the people in the country. Did he not allege that there were 43% mendicants? But they somehow belong to his party? Look at Bradley Felix in the House. He virtually says nothing untowards the party. Yet, when he goes into his constituency, it is there he tries to lambast Labour, the Labour Party, or the government, over alleged propaganda, lies, misinformation, and disinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is without a doubt a sight for sore eyes sometimes. But the biggest laugh of the century for me was seeing the leader of the opposition sitting at the back of a pickup truck with his security sitting on the rim. And it almost looked as if he was being arrested for his lies and for his distasteful behavior. But the biggest laugh of all is that he's now being seen as Mr. Johnny Walker because of his sheer stupidity of walking out of the House whenever Stephen King or Richard Fredericks take the podium. He walks out. So Stephen King baptized him with the new name, Johnny Walker, always walking out. But he always seems as if he is drunk when he walks out, and he is without a doubt the classical Walker. Every time he does that, it is for me the most pathetic sight to behold. Yet this individual is representing people in the Micoud South constituency. Alan, I once again ask you, one more time, to return our $7.3 million for vaccine which we never received. Make it possible. You made it possible by borrowing our money. And maybe this is coming from, go and borrow it from Cambridge Analytica because you've paid them so much money. The guy that gave you insane advice, that is the company, which somehow will never get you into office here again. Comrade, please retire from our politics and go back to the country that you are a product of. Not this one. If one will remember, the ones that many were aware of, that is the so-called foreign direct investors, were notably Ojo Labs, Cabot, DSH, and a few others, which made the country the laughing stock of the Caribbean and the world. Investors in other countries were simply perplexed. This individual, as the Prime Minister, showed his inefficiency long before he became the Prime Minister, which should have alerted many of us in the country as to his waste of money and time as the tourism minister. He was without a doubt absolutely useless and ineffective and inefficient. Then, I believe sincerely that the then government should have gone into the election in 2016 to destroy him as the leader. In political parlance, it says quite clearly, you need to get or to cut the head off the leader, and then the rest will crumble. There was enough to show his inefficiency, more so the way he lavished taxpayers' money on frivolous issues or projects, as I've mentioned before, Boxing in Paradise. But Kenny fought the wrong fight then, and Alan's friends from London, with their warped minds, came with the idea of, as I mentioned last week, 5 to stay alive. Boxing in Paradise was held at Pigeon Point, which was simply a total flop. Then, as Prime Minister, he contracted an American useless specialist to bring us artificial turf for our sports grounds. He paid $33 million for this American consultant to come here to advise us on artificial grass, which was simply a farce because after being heated from the sun, it could send out poisonous gas. This was without a doubt a total waste of money and time. It was merely throwing our money down a drain. Many would not be aware, as Minister of Tourism, that we missed a golden opportunity or chance of having Taiwan, the 4th largest luxury yacht builder in the world, who was looking for somewhere to register their luxury yachts. And St. Lucia was being looked at. Cuthbert Didier and Tourism, who was then the tourism director, and myself. I went to Taiwan to interview some of the biggest yacht builders, had got them interested in St. Lucia. We certainly missed that opportunity in registering their yachts here because there was an internal disagreement when plans were being made to go to Taiwan because of this guy's attitude. Between 2016 and 2024, there is no doubt that there have been times of such uncertainty that the majority of us, without a doubt, took stock of what was really important to us. And we certainly looked for security and safety for ourselves, family, and country. Hence why the country changed its government in 2021, because what was there before was totally useless. There was simply no trust in the government of 2016 to July 2021. Even after literally throwing out the Alan Chastanet government on their ass, so to speak, there was still doubt as to whether the new unity government of Philip Joseph Pierre would be up to the task of restoring some sanity back to the country because things had got so bad. The reason for that uncertainty was simply because of the mess the country was in as the facts unraveled and unfolded. The last government did not use taxpayers' money or money borrowed wisely, and therefore the country almost seems to be living on borrowed time. Before the IMF would have had to come in. However, God, in his infinite mercy and wisdom, sent his deliverer in the person of Philip Joseph Pierre to the rescue. And now the country is beginning to see some daylight and is literally enjoying the sunshine that now seems to grace every inch of this country. So much so, everyone was eager to hear the new budget and what would come out on the 26th of March 2024. It sent a feeling of joy into the sinews of the majority of the country, bar those who, at their meetings, were making it clear that they must make every effort to get the Pierre government out. They were not commendable in what the country was achieving. They only cared about retrieving power they had. What a bunch of nincompoops, and I'll say it over and over again, and dishonorable reprobates. These challenges of creating positive connections, engaging people and giving them a voice, and reinforcing inclusivity and security in the society is very important to each and every one of the population. And it cannot be done on political colors, as we have seen happen during COVID-19. On coming into office, the Prime Minister realized that we had to step up, and therefore the government had a vital role to play in helping in the development that was needed. But we needed the politics of belief. On taking office, the government saw an increase in tension and conflict because the opposition could not come to the realization that they were unceremoniously kicked out of office because they thought that the continual deceit and dishonesty would prevail, because they thought that they were dealing with mendicants, jackasses, and barking dogs who continually brayed. However, God, again, in his infinite wisdom and mercy, brought to this country someone in the person of Philip Joseph Pierre as the Prime Minister of the country, and immediately he worked diligently in his first year to bring about better outcomes by being innovative and creative. We saw diversity at its zenith, trust and engagement, underpinning the ability for the country to adapt and change in a positive manner. Therefore, what we saw was a leader who was without a doubt leading by example, and he saw himself as the change the country needed. He realized that he had to start by being clear about what he really stood for and the principles that he espoused and used in his judgments and decision making, both individually and collectively. He was no doubt proactive and planned ahead to shape the country going forward and what was necessary in that process. What Philip realized from the time he came into politics is that whatever he did, he had to act with integrity and to be transparent by taking the lead and being more tolerant. He quickly came to the realization, I'm sure, that in a world that seems to be becoming even more unpredictable, we should be shifting focus from things that make us different to things that bind us together, and that starts with each and every one of us. And so at this juncture, I'll take my first break, and I'll be back. I'm heating up. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And before I continue tonight, because it is the resurrection, ladies and gentlemen, and as you could see, I'm dressed for it. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Father in heaven, you sent your Son to be among us, and the goodness and purity that flowed from him. Some did not see this in him, and therefore crucified him. He rose again on the third day because he was your Son, whom you sent to save the world. Well, Father, you also sent us Philip Joseph Pierre to save St. Lucia from a bunch of people who believed in doing what we termed as OBR, which they thought would keep them in office. We therefore pray that Philip, whom you sent to us and who believes in you, will continue to run this country for the next 15 years, as long as he sees or seeks your guidance. We believe in you, Almighty One, because you are without a doubt the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords. Amen. Amen. Blessed be your name. Tonight I quote from John chapter 20, verses 11 to 18. Mary stood crying outside the tomb. While she was still crying, she bent over and looked in the tomb and saw two angels there, dressed in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been, one at the head and the other at the feet. Woman, why are you crying? They asked her. She answered, They have taken my Lord away, and I do not know where they have put him. Then she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Woman, why are you crying? Jesus said to her, or asked her. Who is it that you are looking for? She thought he was the gardener, so she said to him, If you took him away, sir, tell me where you have put him, and I will go and get him. Jesus said to her, Mary. You turned towards him and said, in Hebrew, Rabboni. This means teacher. Do not hold on to me, Jesus told her, because I have not yet gone back up to the Father, but go to my brothers and tell them that I am returning to him, who is my Father and their Father, my God and their God. So Mary Magdalene went and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord and related to them what he had told her. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, it's a happy day today as we celebrate a part of our life that will always be told and will play a fundamental part in many lives in this world who are Christians. I do believe in that one true God, and in him I don't see color, but goodness and purity of heart, which he instilled in his Son Jesus. And it flowed without a doubt from him like springtime. Yes, I'm a believer because I'm without a doubt spiritual. I may not be religious per se, but do believe in the one true God. My spirituality steps from the fact that I appreciate the value of reason. Therefore, goodness for me, as I see it, is the eye of understanding, and the light of that eye is reason. As Thomas Aquinas has pointed out, humanity is bounded by its capacity to reason. And it is human reason that describes positive laws for the common benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that there are laws of man and laws of God. The Ten Commandments is vital if we are to live the spiritual life. Therefore, this is what the good society should aspire, and hopeful one day this country will understand the true meaning of its creed. That good society is a natural phenomenon, something which by definition is governed by the laws of nature. The desire for law is after all merely a function of the desire for natural justice, as well as our insatiable need for communion and fellowship. We need to be in pursuit of the good community or communities. In life, there is such a thing as justice and charity, which we don't see much of in this country nowadays. They are a product, I view, of having a habit of loving, which defines the virtuous Christian, and which, moreover, is most likely to be found in the educated godly, in those who administer the law. I believe sincerely in Romans 13:10, which says, I owe to no man anything, but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Oh, tonight I'm somewhat inflicted by what we are celebrating, and therefore I want to make it clear that tonight I will, from here onwards, simply advocate a religion of humanity, one that is recognizing the idea of God. This is an extension and multiplication of the effects produced by human sympathy, and which champion the love of the good and the beautiful. As a godly human being, and being academic, as one at the top of the political arena once called me, I say with all sincerity that when one is thinking, what does he or she wants or looking for, I say to them quite succinctly that I do not desire to be great, but to be loved, because I care for my country and for those to come. Many of us crave for sympathetic treatment, and so we crave sympathetic relations. I personally do not. However, it is true that we need to be loved, and so we are prepared to love others. In this way, we learn to judge sympathetically and judiciously. There is nothing more joyous than the cultivation of friendship, and nothing more conducive to social harmony. I have seen this social harmony in two groups that I have had the pleasure of partaking in, one normally on a Friday lunchtime and the other on a Saturday. In those groups, there is a certain harmony of minds which, like so many musical instruments, coincide and keep time with one another. Oh, it is then a pleasure to be alive. During those hours of verbal exchange on society and other subjects, I suddenly come to the realization of the happiness of others and see it as an end which every citizen is under and an ethical duty to promote. Moreover, the principle of mutual love and respect are not to be understood as mere feelings, but as a matter of both reason and sentiment. They are the definitive duties of humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, and even the youngsters listening, I say to you tonight on this godly and joyous occasion that we celebrate the resurrection of the Son of the One Most High, that common passion and purpose is a shared interest of that purpose and passion. It is about liberty and equality of others. What I find in the groups I associate with is a willingness to listen to others with sincerity. What immediately comes to mind is that such a conception of truth is not merely pragmatic, but that it allows for the inevitability of political change, but it is also principled in that it allows individuals to exercise their creative capacities of self-determination, which defines humanity. It is true to say that there are those who want to be heard more than others because they have so much to say. Nevertheless, one is always amused in that we always leave feeling imbued with a rationality and friendship for those few moments before we get into our cars and move away. What it always reminds me of is that there is a time and a place for everything. It is at this juncture that I now moved into the politics of our beloved country. And today, I'm sure, after many have gone to church or have shown a happiness of what is being celebrated, when it does subside, we come to the reality that we are still in this global world, one that still has its highs and lows. We are still in St. Lucia, subsumed by politics, and therefore we have to come to grips with it. During the period of 2016 to July 2021, there was without a doubt a kind of strangulation in the air. What the government we had then did not fathom or understand that our society then, to them, it was like murder. Psychologically, to deprive a man of a job or an income. They failed to realize that when they had the guts to stop the aid program that the previous Labour government had put in place to help the poor and dispossessed, they simply failed to understand that in theory they were telling these men and women that they had no right to exist. It is at times like that I wanted to ask the then government a simple question that was put by Jesus to his followers, and that is, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his own soul? When I look back during colonialism, the greatest victory in our history during that period was something internal. The real victory was what this period did to the psyche of our forefathers and mothers. Their greatest strength during that period was when they armed themselves, not with arms or violent weapons, but with dignity and self-respect. Or even after all those years, I still feel proud of them. What was also great during that period was when many straightened their backs. They put it up with dignity, because to do this would mean that no man can ride their back unless it was bent. I want to pass that little bit of history on to Alan and his poodles, because they simply failed to understand that they were dealing with human beings who were proud of themselves. Words cannot express the exaltation that many felt as they found themselves on the 21st of July 2021 of knowing that the work they had put in to get rid of the United Records of the Poor out of office had come to fruition. It was like a freedom which was never given voluntarily by the oppressor, but was somewhat demanded by the then oppressed. It was without a doubt a historical time in our lives. There is no doubt in my mind that in the budget there will be radical changes in the structure of our society. It has to be, when thousands of people have been cheated of yearly restitution, which was without a doubt a costly process, which this present government has had to deal with, looking at areas such as inferior education, poor housing, unemployment, inadequate health care, which is a bitter component of the mishandling of the economy that was seen in 2016 and 2021. There's no doubt that each will require thousands of dollars to correct, and that is what this new budget will attempt to do. However, we must still have patience to the extent that everything cannot be done overnight. There is no doubt that justice, so long deferred, has accumulated interest, and its cost for this society will be substantial in financial as well as human terms. This fact has not been fully grasped by the now opposition, because most of the so-called gains they made believe the country got, we had to pay for it because it was given at bargain rates. Therefore, this budget is attempting to put things right and to bring about a just society. What this budget is also bringing forth to every man and woman in this society is that progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Even a superficial look at history reveals that no social advance rolls on the wheels of inevitability. There is something that we all must inculcate into our minds, or many must be made to understand that Rome, brothers and sisters, were not made or built in a day. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you all that every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. And without a doubt, the tireless exertions and passionate concerns of dedicated individuals like our unity government and a prime minister who truly cares will see the country through its troubles. Therefore, without persistent effort, always remember, brothers, time itself, ladies and gentlemen, of this Helen of the West becomes an ally of the insurgent and primitive forces of irrational emotionalism and social destruction, which we nearly saw under the last government. Remember that. Therefore, this is no time for apathy or complacency. However, let us move forward with a purpose. I will take my next break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, I must say to you quite categorically, this is a time for vigorous and positive action by all. This Philip Joseph Pierre government, or unity government, is trying its best to make it happen. Therefore, we have to grasp that opportunity to make St. Lucia great again and to make it, once again, truly the Helen of the West Indies. Oh, tonight, I do want to make this program one of reflection, but to bring us back to the days when our forefathers and mothers truly had faith in the One Most High. This unity government with God was then at its zenith, before the so-called global world began to infiltrate this lovely country with its evil ways and ideas. So much so that in today's society, there is so much frustration. Why? Because we have relied on gods rather than God. We have genuflected before the God of science only to find that it has given us evil, destroying equipment, such as guns and of all types, which now kills or take lives more so of innocent people. We have worshipped the God of pleasure, only to discover that thrills play out and sensations are short-lived. We have borrowed or bowed before the God of money, only to learn that there are such things as love and friendship that money cannot buy, and that in a world of possible depressions, especially the stock market crashes that we have seen, and the bad business investments, more so by the last government, money is rather an uncertain deity. Not only that, I want to remind each and every one of you that we can never take that money with us when we leave this present world we now live in. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to inculcate into your minds that these transitory gods are not able to save or bring happiness to the human heart. Only God is able to do that. It is faith in Him that we must rediscover in this beautiful island of ours. Oh, my friends, I feel empowered tonight in what I say to you because of what we are celebrating. And therefore, it is our love for the God that makes us or made us who we are and what we will become. Maybe, just maybe, not in this world, but certainly in the world to come. Therefore, I want to speak of love because the Son of Man in His commandments ask us to love thy neighbor as thyself. So when I speak of love, I'm not speaking of some sentimental and weak response. I'm speaking of that force which all of the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door, which is adds to the ultimate reality. Love is the most durable power in the world. This creative force, so beautifully exemplified in the life of our Christ, here on earth, was the most potent instrument available in mankind's quest for peace and security, and to the good life here and in the future life. I want to remind each and every one of you, as I am sure many of you have worshipped today, as it is Easter Sunday, never forget that worship at its best is a social experience with people of all levels of life coming together to realize their oneness in the unity under the one true God. However, it is important for all to understand that because they worship does not mean that they are safe and heaven awaits them. There are many in our society who does it for a show, not realizing that God is watching over them. Many are merely fooling themselves. Many believe sincerely that because they worship God, He will do everything for them or her. Well, this is as untenable as the belief that man or woman can do everything for himself or herself. That too is based on a lack of faith. We must learn that to expect God to do everything for us while we do nothing is not faith, but superstition, which is also living in a fool's paradise. I see many of us rush to church in the hope that others will think that we are good and holy. And it is the same with some religions. But I tell you this, brothers and sisters, that a religion true to its nature must also be concerned about the man's social conditions. That is why I rate Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Che Val Havel so highly. Why? Because their belief was not only on the horizontal plane, but was also on the vertical plane. Their belief was certainly to seek not only to integrate men and women with God, but to integrate man with man and woman with woman, and each with themselves. This means at the bottom that the Christian gospel is a two-way road. One, on the one hand, it seeks to change the souls of man and women and thereby unite them with God. On the other, it seeks to change the environmental conditions of men and women so that the soul will have a change after it is changed. Any religion or any government that professes to be concerned with the soul of men and women and is not concerned with the slums that damn them, the economic conditions that strangle them, and the social conditions that cripple them is a dry and dust religion, and also what we call a political party. Ladies and gentlemen, I say to you tonight, and we had that political party in 216, 220, I say to you tonight that we must work passionately and indefatigably to bridge the gulf that separates us from the One Most High. One of the great problems of mankind, more so in St. Lucia, is that we suffer from a poverty of the spirit, which stands out glaringly, and we contrast it with the now technological instruments and the thrills that are there to tempt us. Remember, the phone is one of them. What has become clearer from day to day, in my view, is that the richer we have become materially, the poorer we have become morally and spiritually. What is clear is that we have allowed the means by which we live to outdistance the ends for which we live. Comrades of St. Lucia, there is something that I have said before, and I will say it again because of this great day we are celebrating. Therefore, I want to repeat it, especially when one sees the useless killings and violent crimes that are simply getting out of hand. Even though this government is doing all it can to bring it back under control, nevertheless, I want to say to my audience tonight that without a doubt, the next thing we must be concerned about, if we are to have peace on earth and in this country, is without a doubt goodwill towards each other and a non-violent affirmation of the sacredness of all human life. Brothers and sisters, especially the young in our midst, I want you to remember always that every man or woman is somebody because he or she is a child of God. I believe this sincerely, and I want you to inculcate this into your minds because it is the truth. Now I say to the churches too, in this country, that it is time to see a concerted effort by all of the denominations to come together in the communities to help bring about some peace and security in dealing with the crime and violence issue. It cannot be only left to the government. You simply cannot be silent while our young face the threat of annihilation. If the church is true to their mission, then they must call for an end to the evil in terms of the violent crimes and murders that seems to be the order of the day. Many in this country cry for peace, 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 but they refuse to do the things that make for peace. I do not minimize the complexity of the problems that needs to be faced in terms of the violent crimes and murders that seem to occur every weekend. Families refuse to do anything because some benefit from the crime rampage that seems to take place. But I remind them that without a doubt everything is for a time. And in terms of violence, it is a short time. Comrades, I tell you this in all sincerity, that I'm convinced that we shall not have the will, the courage, and the insight to deal with such matters unless in this field we are prepared to undergo a mental and spiritual reevaluation, a change of focus, which will enable us to see that the things we thought most real and powerful are indeed now unreal and have come under the sentence of death. It is not enough to say we must fight against crime and leave it at that, brothers and sisters. It is necessary to love peace and sacrifice for it. We must concentrate not merely on the eradication of violence, but the deadly weapons that is now amiss. But we must have the affirmation that the peace is the only way forward to develop a country and society for those to come. Think of them. I tell you this, my brothers and sisters, tonight, that we must see that peace represents a sweeter music, a cosmic melody, one that is far superior to the discords of gunfire and death, and the sadness it brings to families. I've seen it with someone I know well, and it brought a sadness that is hard to explain. Somehow, we must transform the dynamics of this country's power struggle with the guns and ammunition, which no one can win. We must realize that. And to a creative contest, but we must harness man's genius for the purpose of making peace and prosperity a reality for all in this country. In short, brothers and sisters, we must shift the guns and violent weapons into peaceful weapons. We were once like that. It can be so again. But we must have the will, the determination to mount such a peace offensive. And to do that, we will have to unlock hitherto tightly sealed doors of hope and bring new light into the chambers of pessimism. At times when I hear the leader of the opposition open his mouth and what comes out of it, together with the behavior he espouses, I believe sincerely that he is engaged with others, like his poodles, in a conspiracy that seeks to turn the clock of history back and perpetuate white colonialism, because, according to him, it had a conscience. Ladies and gentlemen, I say to you, in all sincerity, that we must have patience, more so, as much is now being done in bringing this country back on course. We must therefore be willing to understand why many countries like ours tend to go through a period of recuperating after what we had before, which was, in a sense, a form of extremism and aggression that formed a history of its own. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize to you that every new government confronts overwhelming problems, more so when one considers this present government had to endure because of what was left behind. There is no doubt that this government is trying its best to remove the yoke of colonialism, which the last government perpetuated. It had a conscience, don't forget. However, what he did not realize and understand was that we have been going through neocolonialism at present, and which we are confronted with the grim problems of life. Therefore, what the last government failed to understand is that post-colonial period is more difficult and precarious than the colonial struggle itself. At present, brothers and sisters, we are seeing a budget that will pull us through the pain and suffering we went under during 2016 to 2021 with the United Records of the Poor. In a sense, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now, and Philip and his unity government is aware of that. The Prime Minister has realized that in this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there's such a thing as being too late. And his budget recognizes that. More so, he is well aware that procrastination is still the thief of time. What he has come to realize is that life often leaves us standing bare, naked and dejected, with a lost opportunity. He will not lose that opportunity, I can assure you. The tide, always, we must remember, in the affairs of men, does not remain at the flood. My Prime Minister, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately when that time comes to pause in a passage, but time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Therefore, with the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations and our people are written the pathetic words too late. Prime Minister, there is also an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. We, the public, brothers and sisters, still have a choice today in giving our support wholeheartedly to the government because of the damn good work they are doing. Because to go back to what we had before is certainly, in my view, a scenario of doom and gloom. Therefore, it is our last chance to choose between chaos and community. And it's at this juncture I will take my next break. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, because of its importance, I've decided not to delve into the politics of the country as I would normally do. However, I was somewhat surprised to read in Loop that the representative for Choiseul, Bradley Felix, who seemed to have nothing to say the majority of the times in the House, came out of the blue to question why infrastructure did not get more help than it was allocated. When I listened to the Minister of Infrastructure in being interviewed, he seemed satisfied with what his ministry was given. Therefore, in truth and in fact, I was trying to analyze what was Felix Bradley getting at, and I saw nada, just hot air. Well, once again, it looks as if the PM has pulled the silver out of the bag for us, and I'm sure God will help him in the next budget when he will certainly pull out the gold out of that budget. The Prime Minister is somewhat making every effort to be prudent, but at the same time try to spend the country's money wisely. There is no doubt that lots of infrastructure programs will come on stream, and this will certainly create employment for many. There is also no doubt that we are on the right track, and is without a doubt back to where we should be. However, we have to be aware that come June, we are in the hurricane season. We must hope and pray that it spares the Caribbean on the whole. If that is so, then certainly the country will be able to redevelop sufficiently to decrease unemployment to a very low level. we need to make sure that crime, health, and unemployment are our targets in this country. And Philip Joseph Pierre is certainly on the right track to steer the ship of state that has gone onto the rocks under the United Records of the Poor, back into open seas and open waters, sailing on to paradise. Well done, Captain Philip, for putting us back on track. I end tonight in a holy mood by quoting from Erich Fromm in his book. And the book is Man for Himself, where he writes that the qualities of love and decency have become signs of weakness in modern politics, and it is this perverted appreciation of human relationships which denies us the feeling of security which compassion breeds. He went on to write that politics is not simply about getting along in the Hobbesian sense of somehow preventing us from beating each other senseless. Politics is about fundamental human craving to engage with others, to seek affirmation of one's own life through the production of love and compassion. Love is the productive form of relatedness to others and to oneself. Therefore, it implies responsibility, care, respect, and knowledge, and the wish for the other persons to grow and develop. In this sense, love is the essence of being human. I simply wonder if the opposition understand its present leadership and can understand the importance of these words that have been expressed in this Moving Forward program. So tonight, my prayer to the Prime Minister is that he will be under God's influence so that he might tap into his powerful influence. He can make an eternal impact on others. Prime Minister, that is what we were all created for. Therefore, we must all be grateful for all those people who have so powerfully and eternally impacted us. Forever and always. I will never forget them, and like your mother and father. And I'm sure that you feel the same, comrade. Prime Minister, I want to say truly, from the heart, Happy Easter to you and family, and to all. May the Almighty bless you and keep you safe and in power for the next 10 years. Not only that, comrade, I want to remind you of a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, which he called A Psalm of Life, and which, as a young college boy, it was thrown down my throat, and I have never forgotten it because of its significance. And it reads, "The lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime. Undeparting, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time." Comrade, you have gone past your halfway stage of your government's 5 years and in office, and certainly you are already leaving some footprints in the sands of time. Therefore, this new budget will certainly add to that footprint you will leave behind in time to come. Keep working, and don't be deterred by those who have no wit, no brains. As to date, they have left no footprints in those sands of time. Only calamity for the many. As I close, I want to remind you, brothers and sisters, as always, I've tried to be honest because I believe sincerely that honesty is the best policy. Truth, in my view, must always be on the throne. I end tonight by quoting South African Desmond Tutu when he writes that our humanity is caught up in that of all others. We are human because we belong. We are made for the community, for togetherness, for family, to exist in a delicate network of interdependence. We are made to be respected, and we are made to be compassionate. In an addendum to that, one can say that to be dependent, to be respected, and to be compassionate, it is what it means to be human. To appreciate in the truly Kenyan sense. I hope that my dear friend, who is a Kenyan supporter, will appreciate this ending. As always, I say to all who are listening in this country and those in the diaspora, that they must never forget that we were born in the image of the true or the one true God. Therefore, be proud and always repeat that I'm born black and I'm proud of that. So my brothers and sisters, take care once again. Go in peace to serve the one Most High. I therefore say in all sincerity, blessed love to you all in peace to serve the one Most High. Happy Easter. God bless you all. Good night and good night.